Hi everyone, and welcome back to another watercolor class. So today we're going to be doing this cute little pearl in the shell. And so in order to do this, I think the easiest way, rather than leaving our white space here for the pearl, is actually to come back in and paint that separately using an opaque white. And so this is what I use when I need an opaque white for my watercolors. But we'll get all the basic parts in. You could mask that off if you wanted to use masking fluid. But I think for the purposes, I think that this is probably the easiest way to do that. So I'm going to start off here. I'm going to be using a little bit of my phthalo blue. Let me wet these. And I just wet them all, regardless of if I'm going to be using that color or not, because they just dry out and then I'll be fine. I'm also going to be using a little bit of my magenta here. So pull a little bit of that out. So, we're gonna, I've cleaned out my brush, so I've blotted it off, so it's just damp right now. So, what I want to lay down is my first, wash, and I'm not really gonna draw this in or anything, but I do want it to be a little thinner. So I'm gonna pick up just some water, and I'll pull up a little bit of my phthalo blue. So if you see here, we're going to have kind of an oval kind of shape and an oval shape here. So I'm just going to start laying kind of that oval shape in. I want this to be a little lighter. And then I'm going to bring in a little bit of this magenta here. There's kind of my oval shape. So I'm going to keep that nice and light. So I want it to be that kind of lightest part of what my shell's going to be. And maybe here on this side, while that's wet, I can feed in just maybe a little extra color where I want it to be maybe a little darker. Okay, and then I'll just kind of pull these together and let them come into each other. Okay, and I'm going to do that same thing here for this one, except it's going to be coming this way. So I can kind of start in here, bring it around. I get the idea of that shape there. And I'll pull in a little bit of my magenta in here. Kind of soften and blend these out. Okay, so you can see, you know, kind of as long as they're similar in shape, I think they'll work fine together. So I'm going to start on this outside part of the shell, and I've just basically have kind of layered in some of my burnt umber here and just tried to give it a little bit of texture to it. So if you notice, I'm going to leave a little bit of that white space around here. And we'll work on that shell a couple of different times. So at least on my first layer here. On this I can go in not quite as light and pastel. So my important thing is along this edge here. Okay, I'm going to come in and I'm going to be trying to leave a little bit of a gap there. And I'm going to leave this edge out here kind of irregular, so it's got kind of more of a natural. Now once I start coming up into this area, that part is going to be behind, so I'm not going to see it as much, but I can bring kind of just a little bit of a little light edge in here. A little bit in here. Okay. And then down in here, kind of rocking. Okay, so bring this right up and along here, about to there. Most of this is going to be kind of underneath. Oh, I didn't finish filling that in, did I? There we go. And I'll just bring some little hints of this. And if I have a little white space, that's fine. We'll come back over that again. So while, maybe while this is still wet, let's bring just a tiny bit of some black into that brown. Kind of just bring in some little spots that we want to bring in, just a little texture. Okay, so when I put that in, then I can come, rinse out my brush, blot it off, and just with a little slightly damp brush, if I have any spot that seems, you know, like a little strong, I'm just going to kind of soften that out a little bit. I'm going for texture. I don't want this anything too harsh. So while I let this dry a little bit, we're going to go ahead and lay in some of this shadow area here. And I can use my phthalo blue here with a little bit of my brown. And that's going to take it into a warmer, starting to kind of where we start getting a little more teal kind of blue. So when I lay this in, you know, I want to watch how wet, you know, my paper is. Am I going to have to worry about bleeding and things like that? So I'm just going to come right up next to it. So I'm fine here as far as being able to come right up next to it without getting that bleeding. If yours is a little more wet, I would wait and give it a little more time to dry. So it's going to be a little darker and underneath the base here. So I'm going to lay in some of that color, blot out my brush, and now with that damp brush, I'm going to start to soften this out. And then now I'll pick up a little bit that's a little more fluid, a little softer. And I'm just going to kind of keep moving this around. And I can bring some of it kind of up in here. Soften that. And I just want it to kind of fade away. This is going to give us a little bit of contrast and help kind of draw our eye in there to our pearl area. And I think while this is damp, so it's going to be easy to blend, I'm just going to go ahead and bring just that little more concentration here down at that base. And then I can soften all that out again. Give that time to dry now. All right, so here's where if I look inside my shell part, do I want to bring up that intensity any? So what I have here would be fine. If I wanted to pop up, you know, a little bit of my blues and pinks, yes, I just come in and bring a little bit. Just soften it out. So this is just whatever your personal preference is. So if I put a little bit in there, and blend it, and then I'll just kind of melt it here into where it meets with the blue, without having them mix too much to make, or end up making a purple. And then I'll bring a little bit down in here, maybe kind of that area. There, and I'll bring a little more of the magenta over here. Okay, so just getting rid of the color, and then just now with that damp brush, and just soften all that out. Okay, so I can evaluate what's going on in here. I think I need to, I've got a little bit where I've got a little blooming right here, a little extra wetness. So I might just come in with, when that's dried, just a little bit. And I just might kind of soften that out. There we go. All right. So we're ready to look at doing the pearl right now. And so, you know, typically we would want to say if we're going to put white into something, I would want this dry. but when I go to put this in on my first layer, if it mixes a little bit with the color that I have there, that's okay, because if you look at this, I need to bring a little bit of some grays or kind of that purple undertone to the pearl, so I can get my brightest highlight area. So here, if I lay this in, and if I end up picking up a little bit of the color, that's okay. So on this, you want to be careful, you know, like when trying to make a circle, just that it doesn't get away from you. Okay, so while that's wet, if I pick up a little bit right in here, and I'm just going to tap a little bit of that down in on this side. Even if I use a little bit, like I said, with that kind of purple undertone. So I'm not going to go all the way quite to the edge. I'm kind of on that lower half part of the side of the pearl. And so here is where I would want to stop and dry this. So I'm going to turn off the camera and I'll be right back. All right, so I just hit it about 30 seconds with the hair dryer. So on my, I bring over some of this white. Bring a little bit there. I usually try to keep the lid on this just to make sure, but if you ever look like you're starting to dry out a little bit, you can add just a few drops of water and stir it around, and that'll be fine. So here's what I'm going to do on this. So I've got some of this on my brush. I'm going to bring a little water in. I want to thin some of it down. So here, if I want to kind of brighten up any of this, I can pull that kind of like thin wash here over it. And then let's say up in here, okay, I can bring a little bit of that in. So if I lighten up here in the front, I want to kind of pull those strokes kind of down to kind of indicate a little bit that bowl shape. And I'll kind of brighten up in here. So I'll take a little bit of this white. I'll still give that pearl just a little bit of time to dry. And here's where I can just kind of come in and touch some little spots along the edges. And I think I'm going to pick up a little bit of brown. And just anywhere along here that I need to bring in maybe just a little clarity, a little sharpness. So I'm using that's a little more, got a little bit of that black in there, so maybe I'm going to kind of push this back a little bit, make that a little more recessed. And then just a little bit up in here. And mostly just to kind of make that a little more textured. All right. So now under my pearl, if you notice how much more this one shows up, because I need a little more contrast in underneath the pearl. So I'm going to use a little bit of this combination here of my brown black with my blue. It could even be kind of my, take that purplish color combination between it and a little bit of that right in there. And I can always add in more, but I'm going to come here underneath a little higher than I want, so let me lift that off there. And then on this, I'm going to take it and just pull it and soften it out. So I'm using very little paint here. And some of I just need to tap in a little bit, wipe out the brush. So when I'm pulling this way, I'm going to be spreading it out. If I feel like it's getting away from me, then I can always lift off by coming from the outside in that way. I just kind of fidget with this until I feel like I've got that kind of right balance between my shadow and my contrast that I want. So I'm just tapping in the tiniest bit. Remember, I want to keep that all nice and soft there. Okay, so we've got our shadow, we've got our grayed area, and then this is where I would come in and just kind of redefine, so where I want my brightest, whitest part here, where that highlight is going to be, and then I need to soften down in here a little bit, so that brightest part of the highlight, I want that nice and strong and bright, and the rest of this is just going to be a little softer. Just a little bit right. Real pearls aren't always going to be like a perfect round. They're going to be typically a little more wonky in their shape. So that gives that forgiveness that if it's not perfectly round, that it's okay. I'm just going to use a little smaller brush here. I'm just going to pick up some of this white that's dried. And so, you know, you can fidget with this a little bit more, but for the basic part, you've got, you know, your little pearl here. I would say be careful on your placement, not to place this too high. The lower we place the pearl here, the more it's going to help to read that this has, you know, that little bit of that bowl shape, and that we can, you know, that it's sitting down into that area that it's scooped out. If you get it up real high, it's not going to read that much. So that would be probably another thing to kind of watch for when you're placing that. And you may find the first time that you do this that, you know, if you make that mistake, but just come back and try it again until you feel like you can master the concept and get something that you're happy with there. So there I just added a little bit more under the pearl, a little bit more there, and there you have your little pearl in a shell watercolor. So I hope you enjoyed the class. If you did, please give the video a thumbs up, and I hope that you're subscribed so you don't miss any of my content. And we'll see you for the next class.